pursuit of food and what food is. Because without food, humans don't exist. It's essentials of life. But then food can also be luxury. And you see, food is part of a culture. Like, say, fine arts, dress, language, and so food. And you know, culture takes centuries to evolve. It's something which cannot be done overnight. And it evolves. You can't go and purchase culture from a shop. No, you have to be part of it. And food also evolves. And this evolution of food in India, as far as this biryani is concerned, you see, this is basically a strong Muslim influence on the food. And you know, the two things which I was just telling them that India owes to the Central Asians. One is the East bread, Khamiri roti, what we call. The other is the cooking of rice, meat together, rice and vegetables together. Now, this is definitely, it has something to do with the Central Asian pulaus. But here the thing evolved into biryani. There's a difference between pulao and a biryani. And you see, pulaus, they go to Turkey, the mainstay of that cuisine. You know, they use a lot of stock. Without stock, you can't cook a pulao. But here, we don't use the stock. We cook rice and meat together. And you know, in Hyderabad, when I've come down to the basics of Hyderabad cuisine, you see, Hyderabad cuisine basically had got about 4 different types. Number one is I will say the banquet food, the biryani, kebabs, and so on. The other is everyday food, what we eat in the house, and that mainstay of any kind of living. How refined it is, it reflects the community, it reflects the people. Then you see, we have got the festival food. India is a country with innumerable festivals. You can very well say every day there is a festival here. It might be a religious festival, it might be a seasonal festival, so on. So the evolution of this festival food is a very, very important aspect of Indian food. And so is in the entire Middle East. You see, then apart from that, there's another food which is very important, especially in Hyderabad. It is the travel food. Now you'll be wondering what travel food is. You know, in the days past, say, not a very distant past, say, about 50 to 60 years, when the transportation was not that up to the mark, when the communications were rather difficult, people had to go in the villages where they were, they had their lands. So the hotels did not exist. Roadside eateries were not there. So the only thing was they depended on food which they used to carry along. Now this, just listen, I require your indulgence here. You know, this food, the greatness was that it must have a shelf life. It should not get spoiled. So the evolution of this travel food took place here. And one of the main approaches was we used to cook it without water. And there are other certain things which were avoided, like citrus, lime, because they will in fact start fermentation. So this food, you see, now is being lost for posterity. Because now we've got hotels at every kilometer. The food availability is there. The need to carry food and water is totally gone. So this is Hyderabad and Hyderabad cuisine. And the mainstay of Hyderabad food is lamb. It is a landlocked place. We do eat freshwater fish, yes, we do. We eat a lot of chicken, but the unfortunate aspect is that the curries of Hyderabad, chicken curries, you see, we are unable to say cook it to perfection because of the broilers. This broiler chicken, you know, it's a great scientific gift to mankind. But at the same time, it doesn't stand to cooking. See, there's a lot of difference between Western cooking style and the Indian cooking style. Here, you know, the masalas, use of masalas. And what masalas are? There are basically two types of masalas. One is the spices. In spices, I don't count, say, chilies. The spices, cardamom, cinnamon, cloves, and another cumins. There's another, I think, a species of cumin, which is called shazira, highly fragrant, and it's very one of the essentials for biryani. You know, the other masalas which I am talking about are, now I think this is quite alien to the Western style of cooking. Here, what? You use certain nuts, certain seeds, nuts like almond, nuts like, say, there's a nut here called chironji, it grows in the wild. Then dried coconut, fresh coconut, two distinct tastes, two distinct flavors, dryness, far sweeter, fresh coconut, far fresher. Then there are other certain things. So this masalas must stand cooking of some length of time. And there is a process called bhunav. You see, I don't know what the correct English word would be, but by that what I mean is we go on stirring the ingredients. So these broiler chickens, you see, they disintegrate. And they do not imbibe the tastes and flavors as they should. Only a backyard country chicken that will stand. So ladies and gentlemen, your passion for food I appreciate. I hope your tribe increases, because that's what we want, to keep any kind of culture intact. And culture is something that has taken centuries to evolve, but it can be finished off within decades. So for any community, its culture is the important thing. When you say an Englishman, his culture is different. When you say a French, his culture is different. When you talk about Spanish, his culture is different. So also in India, you see, we have got several subcultures here. The Indian culture on the whole. Then we have got the Punjabis, their food quite different. Bengal, their fish curries, fish, absolutely different. Going to south, you see, the idli, dosa, vadas, altogether different. Coming to Hyderabad, our mainstay is our biryani. And we are very proud, as Hyderabad, we are very proud about biryani. The flavor it develops. And the whole thing is that we cook biryani, I cook biryani. And I also cook biryani in say by quintals. Say in our marriages, weddings, see, biryani is the mainstay of this food. And what in my son's wedding, I cooked 60 quintals of biryani. So, so biryani, is basically what is biryani? Biryani is rice and meat, rice and chicken otherwise. But that I call it apology. Biryani means good lamb, good rice, pure ghee, very good cardamom. These are basic ingredients. You can't compromise on them. No. Now, you see, there is a wrong conception that all Indian food is very chili hot. No, it is not. Some foods are, yes, I accept. But by and large, no. Hyderabad food, no. I say it's a very refined style of cooking of a people whose culture was very refined. Still is, even though we struggle to keep it alive. But then, our food, I'm sure you would like it. Because whoever has tasted biryani, they liked it. Once I had the opportunity to cook for His Highness Aga Khan. And Aga Khan, he lives in Switzerland. There's a lot of Western influence on him. So when he came, the Prime Minister of India requested me to cook food for this guy. And I did it. And before I started cooking a day in advance, his personal assistant, she came down from France and she said that these are the limitations of Aga Khan's food. He will not eat chilies, he will not eat, there's so many things, he said. She said that. And then I turned around and said, Miss, either I cook for Aga Khan or cook for the guests. It is your choice. So she said, no, you do something. So I said, do one thing. I cook his food separately, this food separately, and the food will look similar. She said, very good. So then I cooked the food. And when Aga Khan was sitting there, I was introduced to Aga Khan. Then I requested, Your Highness, there's a small request of mine. And the request is that you don't eat my food, your food has been cooked separately. You taste my food. Of course, I have put your food also. But you taste the food, what everybody will eat. He said, sure, I do it. Man of impeccable manners, absolutely educated manner, impeccable manner. He said, yes, I did. And when we served the food, biryani first, after tasting a morsel, he said, take out my food. I will eat only this. Because he was very afraid about the chilies. Chilies we do use. You will see when I mix up. Chilies we do use. But they will not overwhelm the taste, They will not have a burning sensation in your mouth. No. They will only create a flavor unmatched. And the greatness of Hyderabad food, this biryani is cooked now in several places. Throughout the world it is cooked. The difference between Hyderabad biryani and other biryani that is cooked in this country, India, is, other places they prepare the meat with the sauce separately, rice separately, both. After cooking, they will put it in a pot and put it on dum. They say this is biryani. Here we don't do that. Here, the meat is absolutely raw. It will be marinated, I'll marinate before you. If I marinate it in my usual way of cooking, it will take, a marination of at least 1 to 2 hours is necessary for me. Because then only as chefs, most of you would be knowing that the flavors, the food, the meat imbibes the flavor, it takes some time. But because of the shortness of time, I might not be able to do that. But here, we cook the meat and the raw rice together. Now that is something very great. Because if it is cooked imperfectly, the rice will not be cooked. And otherwise the meat will not be cooked. So now the art is to cook to perfection, where the rice is also cooked and the meat is also cooked. And you understand one thing very clearly. If rice is undercooked, there is no way you can again recook that. You understand that? If meat is undercooked, you can recook that. You cook it more. But you can't do that thing with rice. So, according to my experience, it takes at least 35 to 40 minutes of cooking time on dum. And what is dum? Now, there is a Persian word called dum pok. Pok means cook. Dum means a type of cooking, on which what the process is to seal this entire handi with flour dough and cook it on fire. Allow the steam to develop. When the steam tries to escape, put down the flame and cook it further. Keep it like that for at least 35 minutes. If you take it out earlier than that, be assured your rice will not be cooked. If you cook it for very long length of time, then it becomes dry. Don't allow that. So my advice, if you accept it, I take the liberty of calling it my advice, because you all people are so well versed in cooking, I suppose, that say a cooking time of 1 hour should be enough, totally, for a biryani to come out in the best of shape. And this biryani should be cooked in such a manner where you should not require anything else along with it. That's the greatness. And understand one thing, there are two types of biryanis. Biryani, the cooking is the same. The flavors differ. One is Sufyani kham, the other is Zafrani kham. Now, this kham is a Persian word, a Urdu word, means raw. Sufyani means white. Zafrani means saffron. You understand? So, of course, the connoisseur of biryani will go in for the white. A chef here should be judged by his capacity to cook a Sufyani, because that flavor is unmatched even by saffron. But today, I suppose, I have been asked to cook saffron, with saffron, because I think your palate will accept that very easily. So shall we start? Take the liberty.